In a small corner of Alabama, an ordinary life has ignited extraordinary controversy. Michaela, sometimes spelled Michaela Caldwell Hodgins, a 32-year-old former high school teacher and cheerleading coach, now finds herself at the center of a serious legal storm. A Randolph County grand jury has indicted her on a charge of sexual intercourse with a student. That's the brief, stark headline. But like all true crime stories, the details are where the real questions lie. From the outside, Hodgins was living what many would call a dream life, married with 2 children, a respected role in her community, and a reputation for investing in youth through coaching and education. Her appointment as cheer coach at Randolph County High School was met with celebration and hope. For many, she was a hometown success story, one of those people point to and say, she came back to give back. Then came the allegations. According to public documents, the student in question was under the age of 19 when the alleged conduct occurred, though the exact age has not been publicly confirmed. That detail matters because it sets the stage for the legal question. Even if someone is technically an adult under state law, when they're a student and the other party is a teacher, the power dynamics and professional boundaries come into sharp focus. The indictment is serious. It says that Hodgins engaged in sexual conduct with a student while she was a teacher. She faces possible criminal penalties, and the charge could upend her career, reputation, and life. The school district has said it will cooperate fully with law enforcement and the legal process. Meanwhile, Hodgins has pleaded not guilty, asserting her right to due process. That means the case will need to be proven in court, with evidence, testimony, cross-examination, and legal standard of beyond reasonable doubt. One fact stands out sharply. Hodgins' last reported day teaching was November 15, 2024. If true, that means she may have been removed from the classroom months before the public indictment. That raises immediate questions. When did the investigation first begin? How long had the alleged conduct been occurring? Why wasn't she placed on leave earlier? Small school districts often lack large investigative resources, so when accusations emerge, the process can move slowly. These delays, however, can leave communities wondering, were the signs ignored? There's also the ripple effect on community trust. In places like Randolph County, schools are more than mere institutions. They're social hubs, sources of identity, and local pride. To have a teacher accused of wrongdoing shakes not only faith in that individual, but in the system itself. Neighbors whisper, parents worry, students wonder, did I miss something? Who else knows? We're at the beginning of a long story. The indictment is a starting point. It does not prove guilt, but it does set the stage for public scrutiny, legal battle, and personal consequences. In the next section, we'll explore Hodgins' personal history, how the allegations surfaced, and how a tight-knit town has responded under pressure. When news broke that former Randolph County High School teacher and cheer coach, Michaela Caldwell Hodgins had been indicted, it didn't just surprise the public. It stunned those who had worked closely with her. Many described her as friendly, hardworking, and deeply involved in school life. She wasn't just another faculty member. She was someone who showed up early for practice, stayed late after games, and spoke often about helping students find their confidence. But beneath that public image, investigators say, something else may have been happening. According to court filings, Hodgins is accused of engaging in a sexual relationship with a student under the age of 19, a detail that carries significant legal weight in Alabama. While 18 is the age of adulthood in most states, Alabama law draws a clear line between ordinary relationships and those involving an authority figure like a teacher. Even if the student is technically an adult, a teacher-student relationship can still be considered an abuse of power, and that's what the law is designed to prevent. The documents don't give much detail. They don't name the student, describe when the relationship began, or explain how it came to light. That's not unusual. Prosecutors often withhold that information to protect privacy and prevent interference. But what is clear is that by the time Hodgins left her position in November 2024, questions were already circulating. Randolph County is a quiet rural area where word travels fast and privacy is rare. When rumors began to spread that a teacher might be under investigation, people were hesitant to believe it. After all, Hodgins was one of their own, someone who grew up locally, built a family there, and was trusted to lead young people. Still, once the indictment became public, the tone shifted. Parents began asking how long the school system had known about the situation and whether enough had been done to protect students. The district issued a brief statement confirming that they were cooperating fully with law enforcement and that the alleged incident occurred off school property. That line was meant to clarify, but for some, it only deepened the unease. The story started spreading beyond Randolph County, making its way to local TV stations and national outlets. News clips described the charge in careful, legal terms, while online comments quickly turned heated. Some called for compassion, insisting that no one should be judged before trial. Others said the system tends to treat female teachers more leniently than male offenders, raising uncomfortable questions about double standards and accountability. Alabama's law on sexual intercourse with a student under 19 is part of a broader statute aimed at protecting minors and students from exploitation by authority figures. It doesn't matter if the relationship was consensual. What matters is the position of trust. When one person has professional authority or influence over another, the law assumes there's an imbalance that makes genuine consent impossible. That's why this charge exists and why it carries serious consequences. If convicted, Hodgins could face years in prison, lose her teaching credentials permanently, and be required to register as a sex offender. Her defense team, however, has made it clear that she pleads not guilty and intends to fight the accusation. That means prosecutors will have to prove not only that a relationship took place, but that it meets the legal definition of sexual intercourse with a student. That can involve evidence such as text messages, witness testimony, or even timelines of communication. But those details won't emerge until the trial begins. Beyond the courtroom, there's a quieter story, the emotional and social toll on everyone involved. For the alleged victim, who was once a student at the school, this case means public attention they never asked for. For Hodgins' family, her husband, children, and extended relatives, it's a painful ordeal of scrutiny and speculation. Neighbors have described seeing news vans parked near their home, and friends say the family has gone quiet since the arrest. And for the school community, it's a kind of collective grief, not just over what may have happened, but over the loss of trust. Teachers are often pillars in small towns. They guide sports teams, mentor students, and build community spirit. When one is accused of wrongdoing, the damage spreads beyond the classroom. Some of Hodgins' former students have come forward online, saying they can't believe the allegations. Others, more cautiously, have said that while they respected her, they also remember moments that now seem different in hindsight. It's a difficult situation with no simple answers. The court process will determine whether a crime occurred, but in the meantime, the town of Wedowee is left wrestling with questions about boundaries, power, and the sometimes blurred lines between mentorship and misconduct. At this point, Hodgins is out on bond, $30,000, and awaiting her next court appearance. The date hasn't been set yet, and it's unclear whether the case will go to trial or end in a plea deal, as many cases like this often do. But regardless of the outcome, this story is already serving as a mirror for schools everywhere. A reminder that positions of trust carry deep responsibility, and that even one lapse in judgment can change lives forever. As Michaela Caldwell Hodgins awaits her next hearing, her case has become a reminder of how fragile reputations can be, and how quickly a community's trust can be shaken, whether she is found guilty or not. Her life, her family's life, and even her town's sense of normalcy have already changed forever. So what happens next? When a teacher faces charges like this in Alabama, the process often begins with a grand jury indictment, which means a panel of citizens believe there was enough evidence to move forward. From there, the case heads to circuit court, where both sides can present arguments, file motions, and negotiate possible plea deals. In Hodgins' case, her defense has entered a not guilty plea, which means her attorney believes the evidence may not hold up in trial, or that there's reasonable doubt about what truly happened. They could argue that the relationship never occurred, that the allegations were exaggerated, or that communication between the teacher and student was misinterpreted. Prosecutors, on the other hand, will try to prove that there was a breach of trust, that Hodgins crossed the line from mentor to something inappropriate. They'll likely rely on digital evidence, such as text messages or social media activity, along with witness statements from those who may have noticed changes in her behavior or interactions at school. If convicted, she could face several years in prison and permanent loss of her teaching certification. If acquitted, she'll still face the challenge of rebuilding her personal and professional life, something that can be just as difficult in a small town where everyone knows your name. Experts in education and criminal psychology often describe cases like this as boundary breakdowns. It's not always about physical actions at first. It can start with emotional closeness, private communication, or blurred mentorship. Dr. Karen Long, a school psychologist not connected to this case, explains it this way. When a teacher begins to confide in a student or treat them more like a friend than a pupil, that's a red flag. It can create confusion, and over time, it may lead to behavior that crosses ethical lines. Technology has made these boundaries even harder to manage. Direct messages, private chats, and apps that delete texts make it easy for private conversations to happen unnoticed. What once might have been harmless check-ins can now turn into something inappropriate. And without context, the line between care and misconduct becomes dangerously thin. Even outside of the courtroom, this case has left deep emotional scars. For Michaela's family, this is a time of public judgment and private pain. Her husband, who has remained silent publicly, is said to be struggling with how to support his wife, while also protecting their two children from the media attention. Friends say the family rarely leaves the house now, and local residents report seeing them pull their kids from some community activities to avoid gossip. For the alleged student, the situation is equally complicated. Though legally considered an adult, he was still a student, and that distinction matters. The power imbalance between a teacher and student doesn't disappear with age. Emotional maturity develops over time, and being in a relationship with someone in authority can have long-lasting psychological effects. Small-town life adds another layer. In a community like Wedowee, where people share the same grocery stores and churches, it's hard to separate fact from rumor. People talk, and once reputations are damaged, they're hard to repair. One resident put it simply, "We were proud of her. Now we don't know what to think." Stories like this are never easy to tell, and they raise hard questions about trust, ethics, and accountability. How do schools ensure that boundaries are respected? How do communities handle allegations when the accused is someone they know personally? These are questions with no simple answers, but they matter, especially in smaller districts where oversight is limited and personal relationships run deep. Cases involving teachers and students remind us that authority comes with responsibility. Even if an adult believes a relationship is mutual, the law and ethics of teaching say otherwise. It's not just about legality. It's about protecting students from harm and preserving the integrity of education itself. As the legal process continues, the outcome remains uncertain. No trial date has been set, and until a verdict is reached, Michaela Caldwell Hodgins remains innocent under the law. Regardless of the court's decision, though, this story is already a lesson, one about choices, boundaries, and the lasting consequences of crossing lines meant to protect both teachers and students. For the town of Randolph County, it's a chapter that will be remembered for years, not because of scandal, but because it forced a community to confront uncomfortable truths about trust, professionalism, and human imperfection. And as with every case we cover, let's remember, real people are behind these headlines. A family is hurting, a community is divided, and the truth, whatever it turns out to be, deserves to come out through due process, not public opinion.